Kyoto, Japan, October 8, 1594. The air hangs heavy with the sharp, choking scent of burning wood. But there is something else mixed in, an undefinable, unsettling odor that draws the crowd closer despite their horror. You find yourself standing among them, pressed shoulder to shoulder with merchants, peasants, samurai, and servants, all different, yet united by a grim fascination, a morbid curiosity that pulls them near the scene unfolding before their eyes. At the center of the execution grounds stands a great iron cauldron, black and wide, like the open mouth of some terrible beast. From its depths, steam rises, twisting like ghostly fingers, reaching out toward the cold autumn sky. The bubbling of the oil inside is faint but unmistakable, a low, persistent simmer that creeps under your skin and chills. Your bones, the executioner's assistants, shovel fresh logs onto the fire beneath the cauldron. With every new piece of wood, the flames leap higher, flickering wildly, casting restless shadows that dance across the faces of the condemned. Two figures kneel before the cauldron, bound and guarded. One is a broad-shouldered man, despite his restraints. His dark hair is matted with sweat and dirt. Beside him, a small child, no more than 7 years old, trembles violently. Not from cold, but from a terror so deep, it radiates off him like heat from the boiling oil. The man is Ishikawa Giemon. The child beside him is his son, in just moments. Both will be lowered into that hellish cauldron, a terrible death that will burn into your memory forever. What you will witness is no ordinary execution. It is a father's love twisted into something both desperate and defiant, an act that will echo through the centuries, a final stand against the cruelty of a broken world. But to truly grasp this moment, to understand its weight and tragedy, you must first know the man behind it. You need to step back into the shadows of a Japan torn apart by war, a land where honor and survival balanced on the edge of a sword, and legends were forged in the fire of destruction. This is the story of a man who lived and died amid chaos and bloodshed, a story of survival, of suffering, and of an unyielding spirit that refused to break. Before we dive into this forgotten tale, if you find these hidden truths of history fascinating, consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories like this. And please, leave a comment below telling me where you're listening from. It amazes me that across the world, from so many different places, we come together, connected by our shared curiosity about the past. Now, the year is 1558. Japan is bleeding. The Sengoku period, the age of warring states, has turned the country into a battlefield. Warlords fight endlessly, battling for land, power, and the dream of unifying a fractured nation. It is in the midst of this chaos that a child is born, a child destined to become either the greatest thief in Japanese history or the most beloved folk hero. Depending on who tells the tale, his name was said to be Sanada. Born into a samurai family loyal to the Moshi clan in the rugged province of Arke, had fate been kinder, he might have lived a life of honor and duty, serving his lord faithfully, dying with his sword in hand. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Imagine a 15-year-old boy standing over the bodies of his parents. Their blood seeps into the wooden floors of what was once his home. The men of the Ashikaga shogunate came in the dead of night, swift, brutal, and merciless. His father, Ishikawa Akashi, was marked for death. His crime, nothing more than being caught on the wrong side of a shifting political divide, a divide as unstable as sand. Swept by a fierce windstorm, the boy's hands tremble as he grips his father's sword. It is still warm from the blood spilled on it, blood shed by unseen killers who have vanished back into the darkness, leaving only death and the stench of violence behind. This is the moment Sanada Karanashan dies, and something else is born in his place, something harder, angrier, more dangerous. He becomes a student of Momochi Sando, one of the most feared ninja masters of the Aki school, deep within mountain strongholds, where shadows are weapons and silence is armor. The boy learns arts that will transform him into legend. He studies the way of the blade, the secrets of stealth, and the deadly dance of assassination, skills that turn ordinary men into whispers in the night. But even in this harsh world of discipline and death, his heart betrays him. They say he fell in love with one of his master's concubines, a woman whose name has been lost to history, but whose beauty must have been unforgettable, worth dying for. When Momochi discovers the affair, there is only one choice, exile or death. The boy chooses exile, but not before stealing something precious from his master, a sword of legendary craftsmanship, a blade that seems to hum with its own inner light. This theft haunts him for the rest of his days. It brands him a Nuken, a runaway ninja, a man without honor or home, and so Sanada Karanashan disappears into the mists of history. From those mists emerges a new name, Ishikawa G-Man, a name that will become both feared and loved, depending on whether you are rich or poor. The Kansai region in the late 16th century is a place of extremes. Wealth flows like water to those who know how to harness it. The peasants scrape by on scraps. The merchant class grows fat on trade. Samurai lords hoard treasures like dragons guarding gold. Buddhist temples become vaults filled with riches that could make emperors weep with envy. Into this world of great inequality comes Ishikawa G-Man, but he brings a different kind of justice. Picture a moonless night in 1580. A wealthy merchant's mansion in Osaka stands silent beneath a blanket of stars. Guards patrol their posts with the lazy confidence of men who have never known true danger. Inside, the merchant sleeps peacefully, surrounded by silk and gold, his dreams filled with profits and plans to expand his trade routes. He does not hear the soft footsteps on the roof. He does not see the shadow slipping through the window like liquid night. He only awakens when cold steel presses against his throat. He looks up into eyes filled with the fury of the dispossessed. Your money, or your life, Ishikawa G-Man whispers, but there is something deeper in his voice. This is not mere robbery, he says. It is redistribution. The merchant's gold, earned by the sweat of farmers and the labor of craftsmen, will find its way back to those who need it most by dawn. The merchant's strongboxes lie empty, and in villages outside Osaka, mysterious gifts begin to appear. Bags of rice left on widows' doorsteps, silver coins pressed into the hands of crippled beggars, medicine for sick children paid for with gold, stamped by the merchant's own seal. This is how legends are born, not in grand halls of power, but in quiet moments of kindness born from acts of defiance. Ishikawa G-Man and his band of followers become ghosts in the night, striking at the wealthy, stealing from the powerful, and giving to the poor. The common people whisper his name, with a reverence that borders on worship at last. Someone understands their struggles, someone willing to risk everything to tip the scales. Back toward justice. Children grow up hearing stories of this noble thief, a man who steals from the rich to feed the poor in their imaginations. Ishikawa G-Man becomes more than human, a force of nature, a champion of justice. But legends, as G-Man will soon learn, are dangerous things. They attract attention from those who prefer their injustices to remain hidden, undisturbed. While G-Man builds his reputation in the shadows, another man rises in the full light of day. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, born a peasant claws his way up from the lowest ranks to become one of Japan's most powerful men, where G-Man moves with stealth and cunning. Hideyoshi commands armies and wields diplomacy where G-Man seeks to redistribute wealth. Hideyoshi seeks to accumulate it. They are mirror images, both born with nothing, both rising through sheer force of will, both commanding fierce loyalty, but their paths will diverge, and the divide between them will prove fatal. Hideyoshi is the great unifier, the man destined to end the second period and bring a new order to Japan. By 1582, had risen with unstoppable force across Japan through a careful blend of battle and diplomacy. He had systematically subdued or persuaded nearly every warring daimyo to accept his rule. By the 1590s, he stood at the summit of power, the ruler of a Japan finally tasting peace after generations of relentless war. But Hideyoshi understood that true peace demanded more than just defeating armies on the battlefield. It required eradicating every source of chaos, crushing all rebellion, and stamping out every challenge to his authority. And lurking in the shadows of this new order was Ishikawa G-Man, a symbol of everything Hideyoshi sought to destroy. G-Man was lawlessness made flesh, rebellion incarnate, the living proof that the idea of individual conscience standing against the state was not only possible, but dangerous. The clash between them did not emerge from grand strategy or battlefield maneuvers. Instead, it was born of a personal tragedy, one that transformed political enemies into blood enemies. Dawn's wife, Otaki, was a woman said to rival even the court ladies in beauty. She was taken by Hideyoshi's agents. Some say she was killed for the crimes of her husband. Others whisper she died protecting their son from capture. The truth of her death matters less than the fury it ignited in G-Man's heart. The man who had once been content to steal from the rich and give to the poor now thirsted for something far deeper. Revenge. Fushimi Castle, Kyoto, September 1594. The castle perches like a shining jewel atop its hill. Its white walls gleam under the cold moonlight. Inside, Toyotomi Hideyoshi sleeps, the sleep of a powerful man, surrounded by layers of security that would make any infiltration impossible, except to a master of the shadows, and Ishikawa Giman had spent decades mastering the impossible. He moves silently through the castle like a ghost, past the outer guards, through a maze of dim corridors, and up the stairs leading to the private chambers of the man who rules all Japan. The room is surprisingly simple for a man of such power. Hideyoshi lies on his futon, breathing deep and even. For a moment, G-Man simply watches. This peasant who rose from nothing to become a king. This man who has united the country under his iron will looks almost innocent in sleep. His small frame, weathered features, and graying hair betray none of the ruthless force that shaped a nation. G-Man draws his blade, the stolen sword that has been his companion for years. The steel gleams, catching the moonlight, seeming to burn with an inner fire. One swift strike and the tyrant would be dead. Japan would be freed from his oppression, and Otaki would be avenged. But as G-Man raises the weapon, his foot catches on. A small table, a bronze bell placed for ceremony or decoration, tumbles to the floor with a crashing sound that shatters the night silence like thunder. The effect is immediate and catastrophic. From hidden alcoves. Guards pour into the room, swords drawn. Hideyoshi bolts upright, eyes wide, but already. Calculating. In seconds, G-Man finds himself surrounded, his blade pressed to a throat he can no longer end. Hideyoshi speaks, his voice remarkably calm for a man just awoken by an assassin at his bedside. The great Ishikawa G-Man finally shows. His face, he says, "I wondered when you would come for me." G-Man says nothing. There is nothing to say. He has failed, and failure means death. But not just any death. Something worse, something so terrible that death would seem a mercy by comparison. The trial, if it could be called that, is swift and certain. G-Man stands in the great hall of Fushimi Castle, his hands bound but his head held high. Court officials and military commanders surround him, their eyes hungry, knowing they witness a moment that will be remembered for generations. Hideyoshi sits on his throne, studying the man who tried to kill him with something like admiration. Here is a worthy enemy, a man who nearly succeeded where so many others failed. Ishikawa Gimon, Hideyoshi announces, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "You stand accused of theft, banditry, and the attempted assassination of the rightful ruler of Japan. How do you answer these charges?" G-Man's response is said to be magnificent in its defiance. Looking Hideyoshi directly in the eyes, he speaks not as a criminal begging for mercy, but as a man who has lived by his own code and is ready to die by it. "I am guilty of all you have named," he says, his voice strong and clear. "I have stolen from the rich to give to the poor. I have defied those who would crush the weak beneath their heels. And yes, I have tried to kill you, because you are a tyrant who has forgotten that power exists to serve the people, not to dominate them." The court erupts in shocked murmurs. No one dares to speak to Hideyoshi like this. No one openly challenges his authority so directly. But G-Man is not finished. "If these are crimes, then I am proud to be a criminal. If defying injustice is treason, then I am happy to be a traitor. Do with me as you will, but know this: others will follow in my footsteps. The poor will always need champions, and tyrants will always breed rebellion." Hideyoshi's face remains calm, but those who know him see the fury rising behind his eyes. This is not just defiance, it is a direct challenge to everything he has built, everything he stands for. "You speak of justice," Hideyoshi replies, his voice dangerously low, "but justice requires order. And order demands that those who break the law face consequences. You have lived by violence, Ishikawa Giman. Now you will die by it." The sentence, when it comes, shocks even the hardened courtiers. Death by boiling. A punishment so rare and cruel that it is reserved only for the most heinous criminals. But Hideyoshi is not finished. Since Giman claims to be a champion of the people, Hideyoshi says, "Let us see how much you truly love them. Your son will share your fate. He will die as you die, slowly, in agony, so that all who witness it will understand the price of defying rightful order." At last, G-Man's composure breaks. His son, innocent, small, a child who has done nothing but carry his father's name, will die for crimes he never committed. The pain that crosses G-Man's face is deeper than any physical torture. The boy is blameless. He says, voice cracking for the first time, "Kill me as you will, but spare the child. He has done nothing to deserve this fate." But Hideyoshi is unyielding. "The child is yours. He carries your blood, your name, your legacy of defiance. Japan will be better without both of you." The night before the execution, Jiman sits in his cell, his son pressed close beside him. The boy, barely 7 years old, does not fully understand what awaits them, but he can feel his father's anguish, heavy and real, like a physical weight pressing down on his small shoulders. "Papa," the child whispers, "are we going to die tomorrow?" G-Man looks down at his son, this innocent boy caught in a deadly game between his father and the ruler of Japan. How do you explain to a child that he will die for sins he never committed, for a rebellion he never chose? Yes, G-Man finally says, because he has always believed in truth, even when it is terrible, "We are going to die tomorrow." The boy is silent for a long moment, absorbing those terrible words with a strange calm that children sometimes show when faced with disasters too big to understand. "Will it hurt?" he asks quietly. G-Man closes his eyes, fighting back tears. "Yes," he says softly, "it will hurt. Will you be with me?" "I promise," G-Man answers, pulling his son close. "I will be with you. I will hold you, and I will not let go, no matter what happens." The boy nods, seemingly satisfied in his child's mind. Perhaps death is less frightening if his father faces it alongside him. G-Man spends the rest of the night composing his death poem, a final tradition for condemned men to leave behind a statement of belief or philosophy. His poem is both a confession and a prophecy. Though you may boil a thief's body, you cannot boil away his spirit. Thieves will always exist as long as there are rich and poor. This poem speaks not only to G-Man's fate, but to the endless struggle between the powerful and the powerless, the rich and the poor, the rulers and the ruled. In death, G-Man sees himself as part of something larger, a force no punishment, no matter how cruel, can destroy. October 8th, 1594, Nanzenji Temple, Kyoto. Dawn arrives both too quickly and not soon enough. The execution grounds are packed, merchants, peasants, samurai, monks, all drawn by the dreadful fascination of witnessing something unprecedented. Death by boiling is a punishment so rare and so terrible that most here have never seen it. At the center of the cleared space sits a great iron cauldron, its black surface dull but ominous under the morning sun. Steam rises from its depths, and the sharp smell of heated oil fills the air. The fire beneath has burned since before dawn. Now the oil is hot enough to kill a man in moments. G-Man and his son are brought forward. Chains, clink-ing. The boy clings tightly to his father's robes, staying close to the only protector he has left. The crowd presses closer, a low murmur of anticipation and horror filling the space. Hideyoshi himself watches from a raised platform, his face calm, unreadable as he observes the man who tried to kill him confront his final moments. The executioner steps forward, grim-faced and professional, explaining the procedure with clinical detachment. The condemned will be lowered into the oil, feet first, so they can experience every agonizing second of death. There will be no mercy, no quick end, only slow, searing pain. G-Man listens without flinching, but his grip on his son's hand tightens. The boy looks up, eyes wide with terror, but also with trust. Even now, at the end of everything, he believes his father will protect him. "Remember what I told you," G-Man whispers. "I will not let go." As the guards move to separate them, to take the boy to his own chain and lower him into the cauldron, G-Man does something unforgettable. He lifts his son high above his head, holding him as far from the boiling oil as his strength allows. The Chains that bind Geeman make this nearly impossible, but desperation lends him power. His muscles strain, his shoulders burn, but he holds. The boy aloft, the crowd gasps. This is not how executions are supposed to go. The condemned are meant to submit, to accept their fate with dignity or terror, but not to resist. G-Man is not just resisting. He is making a statement. If you must have our deaths, he shouts, his voice ringing across the silent crowd, then take mine first. Let the boy die quickly, without suffering. The executioner looks to Hideyoshi for guidance. This is not part of the script. Hideyoshi's face remains a stone mask. He nods, the chain lowers, and G-Man's feet touch the surface of the oil. The effect is immediate and horrific. His body arches in agony as the boiling liquid sears through his skin, but still, he holds his son high above his head. The boy screams, but whether it is terror or the heat from below, no one can say. Lower and lower. They go inch by agonizing inch. The oil reaches G-Man's knees, then his waist, then his chest. Each moment feels eternal, but still his arms remain steady, his grip unbroken. The crowd watches in stunned silence. Some weep openly, others turn away, unable to bear the sight, but all understand they are witnessing something extraordinary. A father's love made real in the most extreme, unimaginable circumstances. As the oil reaches G-Man's neck, his strength finally begins to fail. His arms tremble. The boy starts to slip from his grasp, but instead of letting his son fall into the boiling cauldron, G-Man does something that will haunt those who witness it. For centuries, he plunges the child down into the oil with him, driving him deep beneath the surface in one swift, merciful motion. The boy's scream is cut short, killed instantly by the scalding liquid. Then, even as his own life ebbs away, even as the oil destroys his body, G-Man lifts his son's lifeless body above his head once more, holding it like a banner of defiance against the world. The last image the crowd sees is G-Man's burned, dying face, still fierce, still defiant, his eyes fixed on Hideyoshi, burning with a hatred so fierce the witnesses would later say the air itself seemed to freeze. Then he sinks beneath the surface, taking his son with him. The terrible spectacle is over. The execution of Ishikawa G-Man and his son was meant to be a warning, a demonstration of the cost of defying authority. Hideyoshi intended it as a spectacle, so horrific that it would crush any thoughts of rebellion in the hearts of all who saw it. But instead, it became something far different. The image of a father sacrificing everything to protect his child, even in death, touched the common people deeply. It transformed G-Man from a notorious bandit into a folk hero of mythic proportions. His story spread across Japan like wildfire, growing in every telling. G-Man became more than a man. He became a symbol, the embodiment of resistance against tyranny, of love for family, and the eternal struggle between the powerful and the powerless. His death poem, smuggled out of prison, became an anthem for the dispossessed. In the years that followed, thieves and rebels claimed his name, carrying on his legacy of stealing from the rich to give to the poor. The authorities would capture and execute these imitators, but it did not matter. The idea of G-Man had become more powerful than any man. The great iron bathtub came to be known as a go-buru in his honor, a darkly ironic tribute that transformed the instrument of his death into a symbol of cleansing and renewal. Every time someone took a hot bath, they remembered the man who died in boiling oil for loving justice more than life itself. kabuki theaters immortalized his story in plays that drew crowds for centuries. Artists painted him as a hero of superhuman strength, capable of feats no mortal could match. Writers spun novels of his adventures, each more fantastic than the last, but perhaps the most enduring legacy of Ishikawa. G-Man is the question his life and death still pose. In a world where power is held by the few, where the rich grow richer, and the poor struggle to survive, what is the right response? Is it submission to authority or rebellion in the name of justice? G-Man chose rebellion. It cost him everything. Yet, in losing his life, he gained something Hideyoshi, with all his power, could never possess: immortality in the hearts of the people. For centuries have passed since Ishikawa, G-Man, and his son died in that boiling cauldron. But the questions their deaths raise remain as urgent today as they were in 1594. The world has changed beyond recognition. We have technologies that would seem like magic to the people of the Sengoku period, governments that claim to represent the will of the people, systems of law that promise justice for all, yet the inequalities that drove G-Men to rebellion persist. The rich still grow richer while the poor struggle to survive. Powerful people still escape consequences, while the powerless suffer for crimes they never committed. The machinery of oppression is more sophisticated, but no less real. And so the legend of G-Man endures, not as a dusty historical curiosity, but as a living challenge. He reminds us that sometimes the laws of the state conflict with the laws of conscience, that justice may demand risking everything we hold dear. He reminds us, too, of the terrible price such choices exact. G-Man's rebellion cost him his life, his family, and any hope of seeing the world he fought to create. His son died for a war he never chose to join. That final moment, a father holding his dying son above his head, defying executioners, even as his own life slipped away, remains one of history's most powerful symbols of love and loss. It shows us what we can be in our finest moments, and what we are willing to sacrifice for what we believe in the end. Perhaps this is Ishikawa G-Man's true legacy, not theft, not rebellion, but the reminder that some things are worth dying for, that the greatest tragedies often come from the clash between love and justice, between protecting those we cherish and fighting for what is right. He became more than a man. He became a mirror in which we see our own souls, and a question each generation must answer for itself. When faced with injustice, will we submit or resist? And if we resist, are we prepared to pay the price? The iron cauldron has long since cooled, but the fire that drove Ishikawa G-Man to his death still burns, waiting for the next person, brave enough or foolish enough, to pick up his banner in the quiet moments after midnight, when the world is still and the powerful sleep peacefully in their beds. Some say you can still hear it, the echo of a father's love ringing out across the centuries, defiant, unbroken, eternal,